4 years, Blake Shelton has been one of country music's most beloved and recognizable figures. With his deep Oklahoma drawl, his easy charm, and a catalog of hit songs that have topped the charts for decades, he has built a life that most people only dream about. But behind the boots and the big smile, there have always been whispers, rumors that followed him from the honky-tonk stages of Nashville to the bright lights of Hollywood. And now, at 48 years old, Blake Shelton is finally done pretending those whispers don't exist. For the first time, he's speaking openly, honestly, and without apology about the chapters of his life that he once kept tightly closed. Blake Shelton was born on June 18, 1976, in Ada, Oklahoma, a small, tight-knit town where life was simple and people valued hard work and community. His parents, Dorothy and Richard Shelton, weren't musicians, but they raised a boy with music running through his veins. His mother ran a local beauty salon, his father sold cars, and together they gave Blake a childhood grounded in modesty and warmth. It was his uncle who first put a guitar in his hands at the age of 12, and from that moment, everything changed. Blake practiced with a kind of focus that went beyond what most kids his age could manage. He wasn't just playing music, he was finding his voice, his purpose, and his identity all at once. By the time he was 15, he had already written his first original song. By 16, he had won the Deanbo Diamond Award, a prestigious recognition given to exceptional young entertainers in Oklahoma. People around him could see it clearly. This boy was destined for something bigger than Ada could contain. So at just 17, with a guitar on his back and determination in his heart, Blake packed up and moved to Nashville, Tennessee. He didn't have connections or money or any guarantee that things would work out. What he had was raw talent, relentless drive, and a willingness to fail as many times as necessary before he succeeded. Nashville tested him. He worked odd jobs, slept in cheap accommodations, and spent his days writing songs and his nights performing on whatever stage would have him. The music industry is notoriously difficult to break into, and Blake was just another hopeful face in a city full of them. But he kept showing up. He eventually landed a position at a music publishing company, which gave him not only a paycheck but access to the inner workings of the industry. He sharpened his songwriting, built relationships, and slowly but surely got himself noticed. When Giant Records finally signed him to a recording contract, it felt like the reward for years of quiet, unglamorous sacrifice. In 2001, his debut single Austin was released, and the country music world took notice immediately. The song, a tender, emotional ballad about lost love and the hope of reconnection, spent 5 consecutive weeks at #1 on the Billboard Hot Country Songs chart. It was an extraordinary achievement for any artist, let alone one releasing their very first single. His self-titled debut album followed, featuring tracks like All Over Me and Old Red, and Blake Shelton the artist was officially born. Fans connected with his honesty, his deep voice, and the way he seemed to sing not to perform but to truly feel every word. During those early years of rising fame, Blake was also navigating his personal life. He was with Kynette Williams, a woman he had known back in Ada, Oklahoma, someone who had been by his side long before the record deals and the radio play. They married in 2003, when Blake was still carving out his place in Nashville's competitive landscape. Kynette was steady and supportive, a grounding presence for a man who was quickly learning that success comes with its own chaos. But as his career accelerated, more tours, more appearances, more time on the road, the distance between them grew in ways that were impossible to ignore. In 2006, after 3 years of marriage, they divorced. Blake has acknowledged in various interviews over the years that the relentless demands of his career made it nearly impossible to be the partner he wanted to be. It was his first painful lesson in how fame can quietly erode the things you love most. The next chapter of his personal life arrived in 2005, when he met Miranda Lambert at the CMT 100 Greatest Duets concert. At the time, Blake was still married, and Miranda was a rising star quickly building her own reputation in country music. They were paired to perform You're the Reason God Made Oklahoma, and the chemistry between them was unmistakable. Both have since admitted that there was an undeniable spark from the very beginning, but at the time, out of respect for Blake's marriage, nothing more came of it. After his divorce from Kynette in 2006, Blake and Miranda began dating, and the country music world had a new power couple to talk about. Their relationship was electric in public. Miranda had released her debut album Kerosene in 2005 to widespread acclaim, and her follow-up work, including hits like Gunpowder and Lead, The House That Built Me and Mama's Broken Heart, cemented her as one of country music's most powerful voices. Blake, meanwhile, continued releasing successful albums and in 2011 joined NBC's The Voice as a coach, bringing his personality into millions of living rooms every week. Together they were country royalty, two deeply talented, deeply authentic artists who seemed to be living out their own love song. They married in May 2011 at a ranch in Texas, surrounded by family and close friends, with Miranda wearing her mother's wedding dress. It was exactly the kind of ceremony you'd expect from two people who never pretended to be anything other than what they were. But appearances, as most people eventually learn, don't tell the whole story. Behind the award show appearances and the joint interviews, their marriage was under enormous strain. Their schedules pulled them in opposite directions, Blake thriving in the Los Angeles world of The Voice, while Miranda preferred the quieter rhythms of Nashville and her farm in Oklahoma. Tabloids began circulating rumors of infidelity on both sides, though neither Blake nor Miranda ever confirmed specifics publicly. In July 2015, they announced their divorce in a brief joint statement, saying the future they had envisioned together was no longer possible. Fans were stunned. The king and queen of country had fallen, and the public wanted answers that neither of them was willing to give, at least not right away. What came next for Blake Shelton was, by his own admission, the darkest period of his life. He has since described himself as being at rock bottom during the months following his divorce from Miranda. He was grieving not just the end of a marriage but the collapse of an entire vision of his future. The scrutiny from the media was relentless, with old rumors resurfacing and new speculation taking root. Blake had always been guarded about the deeper parts of his emotional life, and suddenly those walls were being torn down by headlines he couldn't control. The man who had spent years mastering the art of charm and confidence was privately drowning. It was during this period that Gwen Stefani re-entered his orbit in a meaningful way. Gwen had joined The Voice as a coach in 2014, temporarily replacing Christina Aguilera for season 7. She and Blake had worked together on the show and developed an easy, genuine rapport that audiences found infectious. Their on-screen banter was playful and warm, but what the cameras didn't capture was what was happening off-screen. Gwen, too, was going through a devastating personal crisis. Her 13-year marriage to rock musician Gavin Rossdale had ended in 2015 following revelations of his infidelity with the family's nanny. She was heartbroken, humiliated, and trying to hold herself together for the sake of her 3 sons, Kingston, Zuma, and Apollo. Blake has since shared that there was a specific moment when he realized Gwen was not just a colleague but someone who genuinely understood his pain. She cried when he told her about his divorce, and in that moment he felt something shift. He had assumed she felt sympathy for him, but the truth was that she was carrying her own unbearable weight. They began talking, first through emails, then through daily phone calls that stretched long into the night. Two people from completely different musical worlds with completely different public personas found in each other something that neither of them had expected: total, unguarded understanding. Blake has said in interviews that Gwen saved his life, and the weight of that statement is not lost on anyone who followed his story during that period. Their relationship became public in November 2015, and the reaction was a mixture of surprise, speculation, and eventual warmth. The timing raised eyebrows. Both had only recently finalized their divorces, and the tabloid machinery immediately began constructing narratives about overlapping timelines and secret romances. Blake was once again painted as someone whose personal conduct was questionable, while Gwen faced accusations of being the catalyst for his divorce from Miranda, accusations that had no credible foundation. Rather than retreating from the scrutiny, Blake and Gwen did something quietly radical. They let people see their real life. Through social media posts, candid videos, and honest interviews, they showed the public a relationship built not on glamour but on genuine companionship. Blake joking with Gwen's kids in Oklahoma. Gwen laughing in a way that suggested she had finally found something solid to hold onto. It was hard to manufacture that kind of authenticity. Their love story found its way into their music, as great love stories often do. In 2019 they released the duet, Nobody But You, a song that spoke plainly and beautifully about choosing each other above all else. It charted on both the country and pop charts and was praised for how genuinely it reflected their real relationship. Happy Anywhere followed in 2020, a joyful celebration of the life they had built together. Both songs resonated because they didn't feel like product, they felt like testimony. On July 3, 2021, Blake and Gwen were married at his ranch in Tishomingo, Oklahoma, in a ceremony attended by approximately 40 close family members and friends. Blake had personally overseen the construction of a chapel on the property specifically for the occasion. Gwen wore a custom Vera Wang gown with the names of her 3 sons stitched into the fabric. A quiet, profound reminder that this marriage was about family, not just romance. Blake sang a song he had written specifically for Gwen called, "We Can Reach the Stars," and there wasn't a dry eye in the chapel. It was, by every account, exactly the wedding two people who had been through that much heartbreak deserved. Since then, Blake has spoken with increasing openness about the journey that brought him to where he is today. At 48, with a stable marriage, a deep connection with his stepsons, and a career that stands as one of the most decorated in country music history, he has nothing left to protect through silence. The rumors that once chased him, about infidelity, about the timing of relationships, about the failures of his past marriages, are part of a story he no longer feels the need to manage through denial. He has acknowledged the pain he caused and received, the mistakes he made and the grace he was given. He stepped away from The Voice in 2023 to prioritize his family, a decision that spoke louder than any interview ever could.